John Hart Asher and Bonnie Evridge live in a little house on the prairie. In their case, the house came first, a top-rated lead home designed by Thoughtbarn Architects. Then they turned a rumpled yard of Bermuda grass and pigweed into a native plant micro-prairie.
I knew it would take a couple of years to work on this to get it to where I'd like it to be, but that's the fun of gardening.
Always, they plan to restore the land that greets them morning and night. John Hart's an environmental designer at the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center. And Bonnie works for the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality in their Air Permits Division program. They also wanted to eat off their land, especially important when son Adler came along. Family chickens provide eggs and free insect control. Before digging in, they analyzed their soil.
On this property specifically, there's essentially kind of two types of soil that we see. One was a reddish brown sort of rocky clay, and then as you got about halfway into the rest of the property, it was a light gray limestone clay.
Next, they got rid of weeds and invasive plants.
We solarized our yard for over a year because we wanted to not only deal with warm season invasive species, but also cool season species. Some people just put down a tarp. The number one problem they have is they get a really thin tarp and the sun disintegrates it in a couple of weeks. So you have to get 6 millimeter or thicker, something that will really stand up to the sun, but even after a year that starts to break down. And then there's a big debate of whether it needs to be clear plastic or black plastic. I just went with black because it heats it up.
Then they amended the soil and continued hand weeding as they seeded and installed transplants. They chose the sunniest spot for fruit trees and vegetables.
We started with the garden in the back mainly because we wanted to have a vegetable garden, and then it just kind of grew from there.
We wanted to do something for our family and raise some of those the foods that we could grow as well. We knew that was going to be important with our kids. We've also got a 3,000-gallon cistern that harvests rainwater from the house, and we use that to irrigate the garden. The prairie restoration component was always very important to me and something because I wanted to add the biodiversity back into my area. I'm very much a believer as cities, as gardens. If we all added a little bit of habitat, then the city has the potential to become, as opposed to being an antagonist to nature, it's something that where we could have a Blackland Prairie Preserve. So that prairie really for us was we wanted to get more bird life, more pollinators, more visual appeal.
John Hart bisected the prairie with a boardwalk of 2x4 cedar supported by welded 3-inch square steel tubes.
So we did stain it for a while, and then we recently just repainted it and decided to add a little bit of color, something that would help those flowers pop a little bit. But really it's just about sort of help give you a nice visual guideline, but to the garden as well, because if we hadn't had something like that, the vegetable garden might not be quite as connected visually from the house as well. So it's something that helps act as a thread through all of those elements and lets people walk without having to go through that, because we do have some guests who are not happy about 2-foot tall grasses.
The path of least resistance also reduces soil compaction, especially in the flower prairie. The grasses can handle family romps with Adler and dogs. In the flower prairie, eastern gamma grass, switchgrass, and Lindheimer muley near the fence add vertical vision to a spring parade of pink evening primrose, Texas star, salvias, and sunflowers. Plants that bloom in summer and fall wait in the wings. The grasses side mixes habiturf, a blend of buffalo grass, curly mesquite, and blue grama, with green sprangletop, side oats grama, and purple 3-on. Diversity protects against species decline and provides ongoing larval host options. Progressive flowering and grasses ensure food and habitat all year.
I think that's something that we've lost with a lot of the traditional landscapes, is that temporal aspect or something of time, of something to do with seasonality. It's definitely something that Mrs. Johnson celebrated, and it very much contributes to our sense of place, of how you define yourself, who you are.
Near the house, an American elm and pecan trees dictated another design.
This is a space where there'll be high traffic and a lot of playtime for Adler.
St. Augustine grass fit the bill for comfy roll-around turf in part shade. For privacy and visual interest on the open fence, John Hart espaliered a Mexican plum.
We're not really doing a lot with the fruit off of that. That's really for the birds, but it was really that form that I found quite appealing.
With two 500-gallon rain collection tanks handling close-up watering, John Hart had another idea, a pond.
So I just thought, I've got all of this upland sort of species plants. Why not start working on some native wetland plants?
They went for a circular shape to offset the straight-line geometry.
I also then developed another addiction, which is native freshwater fish. And I've got several species of those in there. So, and again, part of that too is I was really excited about my son starting to learn more about these species. And so how can your yard not just be something visual, but there's that appeal to something that can enrich your and your children's lives as well. We now also have toads that are out there nightly singing. We have a leopard frog that's in there. It's taken up residence. And so it's yet another part of this ecology, this layer that we've added to the yard.
They designed the house to protect the tree's critical root zones and to blur lines between architecture and landscape. One side features an energy-efficient sliding door. Even when closed, the garden frames their indoor life.
With the door too, having it open and having the inside being a part of the outside too. So this is it's nice. It can only happen a couple of times a year when we have the door open.
Absolutely, native plants don't mean no maintenance, since gardens need care. They do mean seeing wildlife you've never met before in your own yard, watching life cycles, and building a local and nationwide wildlife network.
I think it's important for our family, and we're in an urban area really close to downtown, and we're able to get outside in our backyard and have our son help us with the landscape now that he's a little older. I mean, he helps John Hart plant seeds, and then he can watch them grow and water them. And sometimes he helps a little bit too much, but I want him to understand that you can plant the seed in the ground, you water it, and you watch it grow, and all the different times of year, how the landscape looks different.
We're living proof to say that you can have natural Texas in your urban area, and it doesn't matter if you're in San Antonio or Houston or Dallas or Austin. It can all be here. It just requires a commitment of your time and your effort to change how you've designed your yard and how you decide to interact with it.